You've seen it everywhere. Generative AI is creating these breathtaking images, writing incredible stories, even composing music. It's an absolute creative explosion. But behind every one of those creations is this giant legal question mark. So let's try and figure out the new rules of the game.
And this is the question at the heart of it all, right? When a machine, a piece of software, creates a masterpiece, who gets to own the rights? Is it the person who typed in the prompt? The company that built the AI? Or does it just belong to everyone now?
So here's where things get really tricky. For hundreds of years, copyright law was pretty straightforward. It was built to protect human creativity. Simple enough. But AI generation, well, that's a completely new beast. It just doesn't fit into our old boxes. And that leaves its legal status in this massive, messy gray area.
To get our heads around this, we're going to break it down into 5 key parts. First, we'll look at the human author rule, the bedrock of all copyright law. Then, we'll dive into the hidden dangers of what I'm calling the AI remix. After that, we'll ask who actually pays the price when things go wrong. And finally, we'll peek into the future and see the new rules being written as we speak.
All right, first up, let's talk about the absolute foundation of copyright law as we know it, the human author rule. It's the whole reason why, for now anyway, copyright is all about people. So in the European Union, the standard is crystal clear. A work has to be the author's own intellectual creation. But what does that actually mean in plain English? It means the work has to show a person's free and creative choices. It needs that, personal stamp. An AI, which is really just following a complex set of instructions, it just can't do that.
And listen, this isn't just a European thing. This idea is pretty much global. India's Copyright Act, for example, is described as anthropocentric, which is really just a fancy way of saying it's human-focused. The law was written for human creators, not for machines.
And this brings us to probably the single most important distinction you need to understand right now. If a work is purely AI-generated, where a person basically just hits go and the machine does all the work, it can't be copyrighted. It falls into the public domain. It belongs to everyone. But if it's AI-assisted, where you are the creative director, carefully guiding the AI, curating outputs, making significant edits, then you can be the author, and your final work can be protected.
Okay, but hold on. What about the prompt? I mean, if you write this brilliant, super detailed prompt, doesn't that make you the author? Well, right now the legal thinking is no. A simple prompt is seen as an instruction you give to a tool, not the creative act itself. To be the author, you have to do more. You've got to really shape that final result.
So, if AI-generated work can't be copyrighted, that means it's a free-for-all, right? Anyone can use it without any risk? Well, not so fast. This brings us to our second big topic, the risk of a remix. Just because you can't own the AI's output doesn't mean it can't get you into a whole lot of trouble.
This is the part that trips a lot of people up. An AI-generated image might not have its own copyright, but it can still be an illegal copy of someone else's existing copyrighted work. And if you're the one who uses it, that legal headache, well, it lands right on your doorstep.
This kind of infringement usually happens in one of 3 ways. First, there's verbatim copying. This is where the AI might have memorized something from its training data and just spits it out, word for word. Think a chunk of a song lyric or a whole paragraph from an article. Second, there's copying characters and style. This is where you ask it to say, draw a cartoon mouse in the style of Disney, and what you get back is, unmistakably, Mickey. And third, creating derivative works. This one's a bit more subtle, like asking for a story about a young wizard at a magical boarding school who has to fight a dark lord, and you basically get a Harry Potter outline.
So that raises the million-dollar question, right? If an AI breaks copyright law, who's actually on the hook for it? Let's unpack the chain of liability.
It turns out the blame can get passed around. First, the user, yep, that could be you. You can be liable, especially if you knowingly ask for something that's infringing and then go publish it. Next, the deployer, that's the company whose app you're using, they can be on the hook if they don't have the right safety filters in place. And finally, even the developer who built the original AI model can be liable if their tool is just constantly spitting out copyrighted stuff. Basically, anyone who touches the infringing content could end up sharing the blame.
So with all these risks and messy legal questions flying around, it's really no surprise that lawmakers are scrambling to catch up. And that brings us to our final section, looking at the future of creation and the new rules being written to make AI safer for everyone.
A huge development here is the EU AI Act. Now, this doesn't replace the copyright laws we already have. You should think of it more like a new layer of rules built specifically for AI, designed to work right alongside the old laws.
So what does this new act actually do? Well, it really boils down to transparency and safety. For transparency, companies now have to disclose when content is AI-generated and label deepfakes so you know what you're looking at. And for safety, they have to build in technical guardrails, things like better filters to stop illegal content from being made, and tweaking the models so they don't memorize and spit out copyrighted material in the first place.
So, what can you actually do to use these amazing tools safely? Here's a quick playbook. 1. Document your creative process. If you ever want to claim copyright, you need a paper trail of your prompts, your edits, and your creative choices. 2. Use smart tools. Look for services that have built-in safety filters and plagiarism or similarity checkers. 3. Read the fine print. Understand the terms of service. They often spell out who owns what. And 4, probably the most important one, always verify before you publish. A quick check can save you from a massive headache down the line.
And all of this leaves us with one final fascinating question. For centuries, an author was a human being. But as AI evolves from just being a tool into something more like a creative partner, we might have to completely redefine what that word even means. The line between the artist and the instrument is getting blurrier every single day, and the law has no choice but to try and keep up.